Michelle Shadika. We're here to talk about Monsanto's co-op program. Does anyone, so go ahead and flip the, so who knows what Monsanto as a company does? Wait, blue shirt. As Dr. Bouvier referred to you. No. What is
other than genetics into making better grain, better, sturdier grains to produce more crops per yield, per seed.
Right. So we're a biotechnology company, and our goal is to basically produce more, conserve more, and improve people's lives. So we genetically engineer seeds so you can spray them less, they'll produce more grain because the world population is not going down, it's increasing. The amount of cultivated land is going down, so we've got to figure out how to feed the world. Little background, Monsanto, today's Monsanto is a different company than the Monsanto of like the 50s. So in the I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, the old Monsanto was more of a chemical company. We still do have a chemical business with Roundup. You guys have probably heard of Roundup. Roundup is what you spray on the, we have Roundup Ready seeds that basically resist Roundup, and Roundup will basically kill everything else that's green. So we were also a pharmaceutical company back then, and Monsanto developed a drug called Celebrex. You guys heard of Celebrex? So eventually Pharmacia wanted Celebrex, so they bought Monsanto so they could have Celebrex. There's a couple other company transitions in there, but it became Pharmacia. And then they said, what is this little agriculture business? We don't want this crap. We don't care about this. We just want Celebrex. So they spun off the agriculture business of the old Monsanto, and that's what is today's Monsanto. It's a strictly agriculture business. Go ahead and go to the next slide. These are just some of the awards. I mean, we could go over lots of awards that we've received for our ITN as a company. You can see, so we're ahead of Boeing here, Google, Microsoft, Forbes, most innovative companies, ahead of Apple and Google, which might surprise some of you, and the Glassdoor Award ahead of Scottrade. We do have an emphasis on work-life balance. So, for example, I'll give you an example today. I went into work this morning. I had this presentation this afternoon. I had one meeting that I could dial into this afternoon. So I went home over lunch, worked from home the rest of the day. They're very flexible. Nobody really watches your time. It's all about, are you doing your job? Because they'll know if you're not. You are expected to put in 40 hours a week, but it's very it's not a work from home policy traditionally, as they would say, but it's more of a, if you need to go in late because you've got a dentist appointment in the morning or whatever, take off early, pick up your kids, it's very flexible. A lot of promotion from within the company, very rarely, not exclusively, but very rarely does Monsanto promote someone into a management position from outside. They'd rather develop people from the bottom up. And results driven. Okay, so, and I don't know if I'm going to be talking directly to the slide. First bullet. What this is really about is you're not getting coffee for your boss at Monsanto. You're put in a real role that would be filled by an employee if we didn't fill it with a co-op position. You do have responsibilities. You get real-world experience. Don't be afraid if you get put into a role where you don't have any experience. So if you're a CS major and you get stuck in an Oracle DBA role, kind of what we talked about, that's okay. We're looking at Monsanto for personalities and the right fit, and then we can develop a skill set around that. And also, we're not going to stick you in something that you absolutely don't want to do as an employee. You're going to have options. So you get to see how we operate from the inside. There's nothing secret or special. So this is a paid internship. It's 6 months, so the 2 terms are January to June, and then June to December, early December. The spring co-op term's a little bit shorter than the fall. And we are, at the career fair, and we'll go over the details, we are looking for students for both who qualify for both spring and fall, and we'll take from this pool, and you might get put into a fall, you might get put into a spring, you have to mark and tell us what your availability is. It is a full-time job, 40 hours a week. We do reimburse, it might be on a subsequent slide, but we do reimburse for one class, so if you want to take a couple classes. And you can generally work with your manager if you need to leave a couple hours early, a couple days a week or whatever to take those classes. Demonstrated leadership, communication is very big. Like I said, I can't stress it enough, we're not looking for technical skills at this level. We're looking for the right person who has an interest in the skill set. Good judgments. So qualifying majors, these are just a few. Computer science. How many CS majors do I have? Mostly, that's what, okay. Any computer engineering? Oh yeah, good. Any electrical engineering? Oh, we do have a couple, good, good. And CMIS? Anybody make it over from CMIS? No, they don't like the engineers. I was a CS major too, they don't like us. So the career fair is next week. You guys probably already know that, right? So Monsanto will be there on the 3rd and the 4th, both days. We will have 2 different groups of people. Michelle will be with a group on the 3rd, and I will be with a group on the 4th. So the first day is geared towards more the business side, which Michelle's going to. The second day is geared more towards the engineering side. However, if you are an engineering type student, you can't make it on the 4th, you can absolutely go to the 3rd. It's not, you can go to either one, right? But for UCS majors especially, Mark, who we've alluded to a couple of times, Mark works in our Technology Pipeline Solutions team, and he is the best person that I can direct you to talk to about what kind of programming technologies Monsanto uses. He's one of the lead guys over there. From there, very shortly after on-campus interviews, I think the following week is on-campus interviews. How this works is, you go to the career fair, you talk to us, we take a picture this year, it's a new thing we're doing with iPads. Take a picture of your resume, take down your information, take down when you're available, and then we select candidates from that pool. You're contacted. If you're selected, you do on-campus interviews, which is, you basically have 2 groups of 2 people that you go interview with. It's all social, or what's the word I'm looking for? Soft skills interviews. So it's questions like, name a time when you faced a difficult decision in school, or name a time when you, it's nothing like, what language is this, or write a code for this, or, you know, it's all soft skills. And then if you get out of that pool, you go to the Blitz, and the Blitz is kind of crazy. It's students from not only SIUe, but from all the other schools we recruit from. And from my Blitz experience, real quick, you go in, you're surrounded by a bunch of people, all of a sudden somebody comes up to you and says, come with me please. You get pulled into a room with 3 or 4 people, and they do more soft skills questions. It sounds very random, it actually works pretty well. So benefits, corporate exposure, Monsanto does look really good on a resume. Co-op, so there's a co-op project that's done where you get to work with other co-ops, and I think that's a neat part of the experience, is meeting other students from other schools. Networking, tuition reimbursement I mentioned, mentoring. So co-op mentoring program is something new in the last few years, where you'll be paired up with an employee who you will have probably, I don't know, Michelle, maybe you can speak, is it monthly, bi-monthly?
Yeah, I met with Mike about once a month. We went to lunch and just talked about what I was doing on the job, how things were going at school, because he happened to also graduate from SIUe too. So.
Most of them are former co-ops, and it just gives you someone that's not your manager, that if you need to bounce anything off of or talk to about, someone there to help you and give you advice. And the pay's pretty good. I don't have the exact stats, but I was happy with it. Okay. I don't know what mine so we do work with the latest technology. Most of our development is in Java and .NET. Actually, I think all of it is. SAP, so there's no CMIS students in here. Is anybody familiar with SAP? It's a big ERP system. It's basically what all your financial data runs on. At one time, I don't know if this is still the case, Monsanto had the largest single instance of SAP in the world. We consolidate everything. And then new technologies, so you do get some skills. Although you get a lot of great skills here, you get some additional skills that you might not get. So with that, I'll let Michelle take over.
Okay, so this is just speaking from, I was in the co-op program in the spring of this year, so these are just numbers from when I was in co-op. So we had, the number of spring co-ops was about 19, and the ones that were graduating sometime in this year was 12. And out of the 19, there was 11 students who were graduating that either stayed on full-time, they got offered a position, or they extended their co-ops for another term. Some skills that I guess would be good to have, obviously problem-solving skills, database design, network architecture. You don't have to have these skills, these are just kind of nice to haves. But strong skills would definitely be some skills that you want to have, self-starter, again, problem solver, ability to multitask. The ability to talk to other people is also a good skill to have. Some desired IT skills, so we have programming in web languages, Java, .NET, JSP, HTML, databases, Oracle, SQL.
Microsoft SQL.
Sorry.
Microsoft SQL.
Some of the operating systems that we use are Windows, Unix, Linux, and VMware. And then some of the infrastructure we deal with is email and hardware and software installations. So I'll throw it back to Tyler to talk about his co-op experience.
Sure. So, well, looking at the slide count, wow, I feel like I really took the majority of those now. Sorry. So I got hired on, I told you how I got into the program. I got hired on to what was called the Tools and Metrics team. And my job was basically to support a system that's been retired now called Magic. I'm guessing nobody's heard of Magic. No. Magic was our incident tracking system, so you call it's not a help desk job. You call the help desk, they use Magic to put a ticket in and send it to the right team. Our asset management system, all our servers listed, right, assets. Change management system, so you can't just go make changes on your own. We've got to track that so we can track it back if a change breaks an application. So I basically managed that system because my team that I was working on was trying to move to another system. From there I got hired, so I was a CS major. I interviewed for 2 or 3 different roles. Was offered the position on the Windows engineering team, accepted that. I had 0 Windows Server experience at that point. 0. I knew nothing. That's just trying to get at the point that don't be afraid if you don't have a skill set. They'll still hire you if they like you like your personality. So I started learning Windows Server technologies on the engineering team. After I was there a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I moved to the Windows support team. So from developing new technologies, going over and supporting existing ones. And then I went back to the engineering team in a trade. I got traded for like 3 different people. It's kind of like a Major League Baseball trade, only it was within infrastructure. At that point, I really got into Active Directory. Anybody heard of Active Directory? You guys log into it all the time. Every time you log in, you're logging into Active Directory. Well, you're using Active Directory to authenticate. So I moved to a team that was formed called the Infrastructure Technical Solutions Planning Team. It's a really long name. It's ITS, Planning Team, where I became the Windows Technical Lead. From there, I moved to my current role, which is I was on the back-end server side, moved over to it's called the Endpoint Engineering Team. It's the client side of the house, right? So we're currently going through a Windows 7 upgrade I've assisted with through policy management. And my biggest project right now is we're rolling out a virtual desktop infrastructure.
So I'll go ahead and talk about what I did as a co-op. Basically, is there anybody that's in the computational geometry class right now? So we've been talking a lot about CAOS technology in class, or if you're reading the book, it's a lot in there. And that's basically what my co-op was basically a farmer would go out to his field and collect all the data from his tractor or his planter or whatever he's using, and then send that data over to Monsanto, where we would go through and analyze the data. And then we would give that information to our seed dealers, and they would go back to the farmer, and they were then able to tell them, plant this seed here, here, and here, because it would produce the most yield. And at the same time, they could go back and say, do not plant this type of seed here because it won't produce any yield. And the way that they were able to do that was they have several layers of information. So they'll have a layer of field type and a layer of field boundary information, a layer of plot information, and trial information. And what they do there is all of that's connected by a single latitude longitude point. So you can query against any of the latitude longitude point and find out the exact soil type at that location, the field boundary information at that location, etc. And so what I was able to do there is I helped with capturing some of the high-level requirements for this year and a little bit into 2013. And then I also created some soil reports that help the agronomists in their planning stages. The second project that I worked on is called a dashboard, and it's basically an analytical tool that tracks growers' fields and acres. And in each of these little boxes up there, you see kind of bigger numbers and then smaller numbers. Well, each of those are little queries that I wrote for this project, and it represents, one of them is how many acres is in this, field of land, how many farms are on that, or fields, are on those acres, and how many growers belong to those acres. And another one that I did was down here at the bottom, that's called, has anybody heard of business objects? It's kind of another reporting tool that, what I did when I started out with this was each individual cell is a different number, and I wrote all the SQL queries for each individual cell. And then from there, I was able to use that information to, when I tested the report after I created it in business objects, I could make sure that all the data aligned and was correct in that information. Another thing that I did was, because in the first project, or actually in this project too, there was no, data dictionary. Nobody knew what anything was. We got the database from a third-party company, and I kind of pieced together what things meant and documented that so people after me or other people on my team, they could look at that and say, oh, that's what that means. Okay, cool. And so since I've been gone from the co-op, I've had, like the architect, he pinged me and thanked me so much for putting that together because he's working on a project that deals with that database. So now he doesn't have to take the time to go through and find out what everything kind of means. So basically, that was my very first co-op. I never worked anywhere else, and I got to work on new cutting-edge technology. And the two things I learned was the GIS technology and the business objects. And I was able to improve my logical reasoning skills, my teamwork, and my SQL querying skills. And I was also able to go more in depth with the requirements gathering.
So, can you go back 2 slides? I just want to touch on something during your term. So Michelle gave you a really good example of doing real work, valuable work, real projects for Monsanto. So this little acronym is like a real small thing on this slide, but it is the biggest thing Monsanto is doing right now. It's called IFS, Integrated Farming Solutions. Think about how historically, when you planted a field, a farmer planted a field, they dump the bags of seed, one kind of seed, in their field, and go over the field with that whole kind of seed. Now, using this information that we're gathering and new planting technology, we're able to analyze the fields and say, well, over in this low area of the field, this kind of seed is more beneficial. Over in this area, we just maybe switch it to this kind of seed. And so that's kind of the latest thing that's coming from Monsanto, is integrated farming solutions. And Michelle got to work on it. I mean, not directly, but indirectly. Actually, that's pretty direct. Okay, I just wanted to touch on that. Questions? Dr. Bouvier, look at that.
Do you hire master's or graduate students for
Yes.
co-op positions?
Yeah, that was a good change they made probably 3 or 4 years ago. They started accepting graduate students. But you do have to be an enrolled student at SIUe while you're in the term, of whatever co-op term you're in. Yes?
So what are the chances for full-time positions? Because I'm a grad student, but what are the chances of a full-time position bypassing the co-op?
Sure. I can't give you an exact answer. What I can tell you is, so Michelle gave some good stats about this year. It varies from year to year. So how it works is hiring managers who have open spots for entry-level employees after a co-op term is over, they submit that to the to HR and basically say, we've got this open position, we want to interview eligible co-ops. So you get evaluated during your co-op term. You get a good evaluation, they'll send that manager the resume. And the manager looks at the resumes and says, and probably might pick up the phone and call that person's manager more than likely and says, all right, I want to interview these people. And then someone gets hired. That's generally how the process works. It's not a, we know ahead of time there's going to be these positions, because the budget changes all the time, right? So unfortunately I can't give you good, all I can tell you is, you know, most of our entry-level employees come directly, in IT, come from directly from our co-op program. We hire very, very few people who are not a co-op in an entry-level position yet.
Didn't you guys hire one person last year direct into a full-time position?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it happens occasionally.
Yeah.
In fact, when I got contacted, it said we're looking for a full-time person. It was made very clear, this is highly unusual.
Yeah.
Most of the people who work here came through co-op, but it can happen.
Yeah, and the other thing to add on to that is, if you have a good, if you do well and are evaluated well in a co-op role, if there's not an open position afterwards, right, when you graduate, there's a number of people that have done something else for a while, and then Monsanto's called them up when their manager they worked for or whatever got an open position because they really liked them. They just didn't have the position to put them in at that time. So your resume is on file, right? I wish I could sit here and tell you we've got 6 open positions at the end of the spring term and 7 at the end of the fall. I can't tell you that. That was a good question, though. Yeah?
What you guys look for on resumes?
What's that?
Do you know what you guys look for on resumes? Like any sort of things that stand out?
Experience, there is, yeah, we're looking for experience. There is for SIUe, we like to see a GPA of 3.0 or higher. But as far as something that stands out, honestly, when you go talk to us next week, we're going to think less about your resume and more about what was the conversation like. We don't want you to sit there and be quiet. We don't want you to be loud in our face. Just have a nice dialogue. Ask meaningful questions. Do a little homework ahead of time. And really that's what it's about. That's much more important than your resume. Your resume is, do they have a qualifying GPA? Do they have a qualifying major? That's pretty much it, right? I mean, we might look for some skills, but more when you're going through the process and getting placed, will they look and they'll talk to you too, probably during the interview, and say, what are your interests? Right? Does that answer? Okay. Yeah?
Do you have any kind of positions for embedded engineers?
Embedded engineers.
Like microcontrollers and so forth?
Not really, to be honest. No.
Not on tractors?
No, I mean, honestly, what we're moving towards in tractors and those kind of settings are like an iPad. Mobility is a big topic right now, right? It might not just be an iPad, it might be an Android device or whatever, but it's more along that line. We don't actually develop the tools in the tractors, we more give them a device with software, our software running on it, that plugs into a tool that maybe John Deere built, right? Yeah?
Is that what the bring your own device methods are? Is that how you
Yeah,
see
so
them?
BYOD, big
BYOD.
topic right now. Actually, me and another guy just gave a quick presentation at our town hall on it. This guy, actually. I can't make this up. I can't make this up. It was him. But he just asked about BYOD. This is Joe Smith. He works at Monsanto also. But he just asked about BYOD. So BYOD is a big effort in the coming fiscal year. And what we're going to do is use our virtual desktop platform that I told you about to allow people to use their own personal devices, connect into their virtual desktop that has all their documents and data. So that's coming this fiscal year. So our fiscal year runs from September 1st to August 31st. So that's something to be delivered by the end of this fiscal year. We've got a few people piloting already now because people want to bring their Macs to work and iPads or whatever, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and so are they held like a cloud server? Like you're implementing cloud servers with hypervisors? Is that how you're?
So our virtual desktop solution is a Citrix solution running on Zen server, Citrix Zen server, and then we have a product called Absence that captures a person's personality. So if you have a dry personality, no, okay, but that was a bad joke too. So let's say you have a desktop background or wallpaper that's a certain special thing. You open Outlook and you like a certain scheme. That's your personality, right? It captures that. It captures the documents on here. Yeah. So it's a large Citrix running with NetApp storage. You familiar with NetApp? You're familiar with EMC? NetApp's a big file storage company. What NetApp gives us is a lot of benefits like performance benefits, but deduplication. So it dedupes in 4K blocks. So if you have the same file and I have the same file, it's going to look at the block level. It only needs to keep one copy of that 4K block, right? So it reduces the storage footprint. Yeah?
Is the 40 hours a week, is that at all flexible, or is that pretty set?
Define flexible. So it is flexible to get 40 hours in.
For someone taking a full load of classes that might not be able to do 40
You're really not going to be able to take a full load during a co-op trip. And so the question that we commonly get asked, and there's no good answer, is this going to push back my graduation? A lot of times it will, right? A student has to look at their, my recommendation, what I've always given to students, and I've never had anybody come back and yell at me and tell me I was wrong, is whether you get hired or not, the experience you're going to get doing this is invaluable if you get selected. It is going to look good on a resume. You are going to have more options after school. Think about it. If you come up for a job after school at another company and you've got real world experience at Monsanto and they just have their college degree, everything else being equal, who do you think is going to get hired?
So what classes did you take?
I was actually supposed to graduate in the spring, so this is kind of tagging on to that. And I was only able to take 2 classes. So I took my senior projects course and also the data mining course, which actually happened to be online, so it kind of worked out nicely. But I did have to push my graduation date back, so I took 1 class over the summer, and I'm finishing up my last 2 right now.
So she touched on another point. If Monsanto really likes you and wants to hire you, they will work with you and not let you just go. So even though she did a spring, so her co-op ended in June, and she's been hired, and now she doesn't graduate till the end of December. Mine, I got hired in June, and I had to finish over the summer in August, right?
So Michelle, would you have been able to take more classes in the spring?
No. It was just enough because with working 40 hours, I was basically there from probably 7:38 in the morning till about 4, and then you come home, and then all the rest of the evening you have homework to do to catch up on, and then you go to bed and.
Who does homework?
So it's
She did homework in the spring, I know.
Oh, okay. Michelle.
So basically, taking 2 classes was probably the most you should take. You can get by with just 1 class and probably have time to watch TV or something too. But I just wanted to take 2 so I could break it up nicely. So when coming down to the fall, I only had to take 2 classes.
I took 2 and then I had to finish 2 over the summer. So right, if I would have done the co-op, theoretically, I would have taken all 4 in the spring and graduated. I took 2, finished the other 2 over the summer. Got hired.
just a follow-up on that question. Like, I was curious about, like, if you take the co-op, you take like one class, like your senior project, then you finish up, and then semester after that. Did you guys ever worry about taking like being more prepared by taking like more math classes or more electives, even though like were you worried that you weren't going to be able to take those because you lost time in the process of the co-op? Or?
So you're talking about taking additional electives that you wouldn't need
Like,
to finish to actually graduate?
in the sense that, let's say that no math requirement was Calc 2, but then you take the co-op, and you were planning on taking up to like linear algebra or differential equations.
Mm-hmm.
But due to that co-op, now you're just going to stay with Calc 2. Would you worry about that sort of situation happening? Or?
I personally wouldn't worry about. I mean, that's a personal decision that you have to make. If you feel like you want to take those classes, or if you need them. If you're going to get hired and you feel like you've got the skill set now, then I don't want to discourage you from taking anything.
Okay.
Another thing, if you're an employee, employees do get tuition reimbursement towards getting their MBA, like that guy in the corner. That's why he's here. He's got to go to his MBA class. I hope I answered that. That was kind of difficult.
I like making difficult questions.
It's just a personal decision if you feel, yeah. I mean.
Well, like my degree only, I don't know, is it Calc 2 that we have to do? But I've taken Calc 3 and DiffQ. I didn't need to, but I felt like it.
Yeah.
So
I did.
one of the things the students who are on co-op do is they make a presentation at the end of their term, and some I consider lucky faculty, and I'm one of them, get to go and see these presentations. And I saw Michelle's poster and other SIUe students' posters and posters from the other schools as well. And from what I could gather from my time there is that everybody did something pretty cool, and they learned something, and they were all pretty happy to have spent the time with Monsanto. Probably every one of those students pushed graduation back at least one term. It could happen that it doesn't work out that way. If you were in your last semester and you only needed to take 1 or 2 courses to graduate, you could go on co-op and graduate on schedule. But almost any other situation, you're not going to. I think to a student, every one of them felt like they'd made the right decision to go on the co-op, and I think it is the right decision for most people. There could be some personal situation that would mean graduating sooner is a better thing, but it's actually hard for me to imagine what would not be worth going for the co-op.
Yeah, one student that stuck out to me besides Michelle, and I saw your poster in my boss's cube. I thought about bringing him in, but I didn't.
Oh, you have it? I want it.
Yeah, so my boss actually leads the continuous recruiting team, so that's why he picked those. He had yours and others. But another student that stuck out to me was, and I don't know if Dr. Weir remembers, but I'm sure you do. But he, I forget what his major was, but he did a lot of SharePoint development. SharePoint's big right now, right? And he had never done it before in his life. And he's like, wow, I never knew anything about this. I was a little freaked out. And I fell in love with it. I love doing SharePoint development. This is great. I found my calling. And SharePoint development's in high demand right now, right? So whether he continues at Monsanto or somewhere else, he's probably not going to have a difficult time finding a job.
Was that Matt Lawson?
Yeah.
Was that
Matt Lawson's a CS major.
Yeah. He was a CS major. Yeah. These are good questions. Keep them coming. About anything, the company, the co-op, me.
A little bit I can tell you more on the co-op. With the projects that we did as a group, I guess. I think we mentioned a little bit, you learn the insides of Monsanto, and what that kind of means is we went to different presentations and learned about different parts of the company. So it wasn't just like you sat in your desk and you only knew what your group did for Monsanto. You kind of went to other areas of the company, and they told you what goes on in their area, things that they work on, things like that. And then we also took different tours of facilities, my group actually went to a soybean factory. So we got to tour how the soybeans get delivered in and get sorted and get put into different types of bags, and all the way up to when the farmer comes and picks up their bag of seed and goes on their way. So you kind of get more of an overview of what Monsanto's all about too. So that was kind of cool.
That's a good point.
Monsanto has a really ginormous data center.
Yeah, there was a picture of it on one of those earlier slides.
Yeah.
If you want to scroll back. It's a little picture, but it is a picture of it. There it is. The Analytics Center. It's our data center. Joe and I worked late nights over holiday weekends to move the servers from our old data center into that one. It was actually fun. It really was. But you got to understand, we couldn't take outages on those systems during core business hours. But they compensated us well for working those weekends. Not every company would do that. I mean, seriously, not every company would